Hi, and welcome back to the Global Holistic Coaching Podcast. This is The Conversation Continues. And today we're talking about surrender and how to relinquish control. We're going to give you a step-by-step guide to learning how to accept the things that you cannot change and the courage to change the things that you can. Hi, and welcome back to the Global Holistic Coaching Podcast. My name is Gina Goodwin-Riley. I'm a licensed clinical mental health therapist, a master life coach, a behavior and wellness expert, and an attorney and mediator. And today I'm here with...
Hi there, I'm Lisa Goodwin. I am a master life coach. I'm an advanced hypnotherapist. I am also an international yoga teacher. I teach mindfulness and meditation for quite a few decades now.
And today we are talking about sweet surrender, contemplating the Serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is such a great tool. And I use this all the time with my clients. And we thought, what a great day to be talking about the Serenity prayer when so many people are feeling like life and politics and community and country and career and economy is just off the rails, and it is feeling overwhelming and like there's nothing we can do about it. So that wisdom to know the difference is the tricky part, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to get into it today. Well, before we get started, we will address an elephant in the room that we are here doing the Conversation Continues series. And if you don't already know, I'm here with my mother, who is also a life coach, and we work together. And today we accidentally did not plan this, but we both showed up wearing matching outfits. And Mom, why don't you go ahead and hold up your mug too?
Oh, well, okay. So
the chosen mug for today.
this is entertainment. Okay. All right. So
here we are.
Yeah, this is perfect. Surrender. Okay.
Surrender to the fact that I'm wearing a matching outfit with my mommy today.
You are. And I always love that. I mean, I used to dress you and Brittany, if you remember, with matching outfits with myself. And it finally ended when you two both refused.
Well, here I am in my 40s, back to samesies. So we're going to move past this. We're going to say, I'm going to surrender. There was no time to change. So we're just going to work. We're going to ride through this, and we're going to talk about surrender today. And, also that new Mel Robbins book came out, Let Them. People are talking about that. That's getting a lot of buzz. As I was starting to read that book, I thought, wow, this is just a great take on the surrender prayer, isn't it? So let's dive into that.
It really is. And, just to be clear, when we talk about surrender, oftentimes people will hear the word surrender and they think it's giving up or weakness. And what we're talking about here is a principle that couldn't be more opposite than that. It's absolutely getting into a place of acceptance. And, it's interesting. When I was very young, my mom had some incredible wisdom. And, when you're a kid, you don't really appreciate the wisdom that your mom shares, sometimes not till later in life. And the one line that continues to come back to me through life is, she would say, Lisa, don't make yourself sick over something you can't change. And as much as I thought I understood it earlier in life, I didn't really get it till much later. And it was really such an impactful reminder, that as much as we resist what is, if it's beyond our control, our suffering is in vain because it doesn't change anything.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that's kind of the tricky part too, is that I think, and we've talked about this a lot on this channel, is how control is so often linked to anxiety and fear. And really what this is about is accepting the things that are out of our control, which when we really start to do the work, we realize is everything outside of ourselves and how we interact with one another and how we interact with our day-to-day. So that acceptance part is the key to not making yourself sick. But that's easier said than done, right? And so there's a little bit of science there too. When we feel out of control, our fight, flight, freeze response activates, and that can make you literally sick to your stomach. That makes your sympathetic nervous system activate, your amygdala fires, that part of the brain that is animalistic, that just goes into survival mode. And you often lose the ability to engage the frontal cortex, which is part of your brain that helps you stay calm and figure out the next step. So here's the rub. The irony is when you're in a state of panic or you're feeling out of control, your amygdala is in charge. And so the logical part of your brain, which would help you see that this is out of your control and something to surrender on, is deactivated, which is why one of the things that we teach is mindfulness and meditation, because that helps you so much stay in control of where your brain goes. And when your amygdala is fired, people who meditate or have a mindfulness practice have a higher probability that they'll be able to stay calm and activate their frontal cortex again and be able to see the situation clearly, because that's the rub, right? Like, how do you know that this is something that is out of your control, and ask for the courage and the wisdom to know the difference when your amygdala is activated and you're terrified, or you're upset and you're angry and you're panicked?
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's great information. And I guess where I want to go is, and I'm glad you brought up, the issue of control, because that certainly, that certainly says it all. And also, to be clear, is when we're talking about, the wisdom to know the difference, like what we have control over and what we don't. And we're talking about so many different areas in life. Like it can be, related to a job, to a relationship, to, things within your own health and wellness. There are certain things that are, out of our control. So it is learning how to focus on that with which we can change, not what we can't. But here's the thing. I mean, the more we focus on, what we don't want, the more we suffer. And that brings us to understanding the difference between acceptance and resistance. So when we're resisting the moment, we're resisting what is. And, oftentimes I talk to clients and they think that acceptance is saying that what's happening is okay. And it's not that. You can accept something and still not like it. But because that's what it is, you suffer less from that place of acceptance. And one more thing, acceptance doesn't mean you don't take action. Oh, well, okay, I just have to accept what is, so I'm just going to be miserable and do nothing. No, it's change what you can. And that's part of, that serenity prayers. What our motivation is here talking today is, definitely change what you can, and accepting what you can't doesn't mean you like it, but it means you're choosing not to suffer, and you're going to move forward in a way that is available to you.
That's right. That's right. And we get this question a lot too. It's like, well, what if it's big things, where you're feeling out of your control, like the election, it didn't go your way, and, you're seeing big problems, with the economy, or big problems with, how you see your country acting, or it's something like health, like you were diagnosed with some big, big thing that you feel like is out of your control. How do you know the difference when it's time to take a step back and when it's time to fight, right? And that's where sometimes I think like our feelings can be really important, because what we get worked up about or fired about can be like a clue that there is something for us that we can do. So let me give you an example. It's like, let's say that you're walking down the street and you see something happen, maybe it has nothing to do with you, but you see a homeless person and there are people throwing rocks at this person, and you get this feeling in your belly, like this fire starts to burn and you want to do something. It has nothing to do with you. It could be a dangerous situation, but you want to do something about it. And that clue is that fire in your belly. There are going to be times where that fire in your belly is there and it really is not a good decision or safe for you to do something, or there is nothing you can do. But then there are going to be times where you can pick up the phone and call for help, right? Like in that situation. So there's like, that's that part too of that mindfulness work that helps you start to flush out and understand what your own feelings are and what messages those feelings have for you. When it's bigger things, like things that are happening in your country, you know, I'm always somebody to say, take, you know, at first take a step back, because you never want to be reactive. You always want to do things from a place of calm and really like think things through. But there are so many things that we can always be doing that are within our control. You know, we can have conversations in our community. We can educate people. We can volunteer. We can volunteer for not-for-profits about things that we're fired up about, that we feel like our country isn't doing enough about. We can raise money for things. We can run for office. I mean, there are things that we can do, but you can't skip that first step of taking that time to figure out what is authentically right for you and what those authentic next steps are. So that's part of this work too, is like, I don't think you can skip any of these steps. I think it's like a process of really getting in tune to what's right for you.
Well, I love this. And I think the important part here, and as we get into more coaching as far as the how to, okay, how do we get into that place of, acceptance and the healthy version of surrender? The one thing that I love, and it's my go-to, is when I feel out of control. Things are just beyond anything that I feel, I can do about it. I remind myself, really, the one thing that I will always have control over is how I respond to it. And G, you were just talking about, the difference between reaction versus response. And so, no, we can't control other people, places, and things, but we can control, how we participate, how we show up. And, the main question of, who do I want to be in this lifetime? Who do I want to be in spite of the person, place, or thing, that is beyond my control? And that can give us a little bit of that sense of control. I say this quite often. I love this. It's, you can steer the boat, but you can't control the river. And it's just, again, recognizing like where can I make a difference, within myself? Because imagine, we can think of ourselves as these just little tiny, insignificant beings, right? But if each one of us took control over how we responded, how we showed up, how we acted, if each one of us did that, we changed the world.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And I'm thinking about too, well, I'm thinking a lot of things. I'm thinking about a question I'm getting a lot lately is like how we're feeling out of control in the sense that we can't have difficult conversations, or how do we challenge someone's belief systems while also respecting them, right? And why is it that our country is so divided right now? And I'm thinking about, just what I was just saying about how when we are in fight, flight, freeze, and that amygdala is activated, which happens in conflict, how that rational part of your brain does shut down. So learning that timing is so important to have, for example, important conversations with somebody, if it's something you care about, because I always feel like yes and no, right? Like there are things that are out of our control and there are things that are out of our control, but we still need to say something, where we love somebody enough to say, hey, you drank too much. I don't think you should be driving, even though it's not in our control and they're not us and we can't, there's still time to speak up and have those hard conversations. So really, educating yourself and learning about difficult conversations and how to navigate them and timing can be really helpful for that too. But I just kind of wanted to go back to that too, of like knowing that the reason why I think partly what we're in the state that we are, where we're no longer having healthy conversations about some of the things we are feeling out of control about, is that when that fight, flight, freeze response, when you're in conflict, neither person can take in new information because the logical part of the brain is shut down. And so really, it goes back to mindfulness again, right? Just teaching calm, teaching people to get to calm, and teaching people to have conversations and breathe through them and stay calm. That's
being able to hold space, holding space and grace for yourself and others.
Yeah. And then like the other question, like I'm getting a lot about is like, okay, well, what if it's a big thing? Like it's out of my control. Because the holidays just happened. And this was, I had so many individual sessions about conflict in families and people upset at family members for their choices, or for, like so-and-so just making unhealthy choices, or every time I'm with this person, they say something so sexist and so awful, or they make these racist jokes and I don't know how to, I don't know how to respond. That's part of this work too that I feel like is tricky, is like knowing when it's going to be helpful to respond, or when it is something that you can do, when it is in your control to say something. And when it hurts you, I think it's always okay to say, that was hurtful, and that's it, right? And speak your truth. We're not saying like
Yeah,
just
I
surrender.
feel, that was hurtful. And you make a really good point too, as far as knowing when to say something and when it's best not to, because you can't force a fit, and you can't, force, a seed to grow before it's ready. You can't plant a seed and then go grow, grow. Some people are just, they're not there yet, and they're going to get there hopefully in their own time. And, we don't have control over that, but we do have control how we present, how we show up. Can we be, kind of like, I like to say, like can we hold the flashlight in the dark cave?
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
can we be that, example? And, as you talk about the big things, and you're bringing up, some of the other stuff, what about when there's an unexpected death of a loved one, or
Yeah.
this is something that I experienced, and there was so much resistance for me, and so much grief, and I'm telling you, a decade of my life of trying to deal with this enormous pain, grief, loss. But here's what I would want to share with everyone and anyone, listening. And you can use this with something as big as, a death, or as something else that maybe is not quite as big, a loss of a job, or, apply to any area of your life. But what I learned, and as I said, 10 years later, all my grief, all my pain, all my suffering, and even having this rippling effect, as you know, G, on the family and friends, and my mom was still gone. Like, my suffering and pain didn't bring her back. It didn't change anything. And I think this is what we're talking about with the Serenity prayer is, change what you can, accept what you can't. Because when your suffering and your pain doesn't change anything, it's not useful. And the good news is, or the nugget here is that you can actually learn to use what is painful, or what you disagree with. You can actually use those emotions for a higher good. Like, the negative emotions, or what we're calling negative emotions, don't have to bring you down. You can actually use that, and it's not easy. But when you connect with that choice, that you can become better. So it led me, to yoga, to, personal growth, self-help, hypnosis, all these things that actually were a spin-off from that pain. So yeah, it's just a different way of dealing with the same situation.
Mm. And I love that example, right? Because grief is such a perfect example to talk through of things that we cannot change. And that word courage, right? Because I think that's why I use the Serenity prayer so much, is that part about the courage to change the things that I can. Like, let's use grief. Like, when you're in grief, the courage to face that and say, I have to get to acceptance, and these are the things that are within my control. I can start a yoga practice. I can go to church. I can talk to community members. I can call a therapist. I can go to a grief support group. I can engage more with my children and my family. And that requires so much courage. Like, all change requires courage, in my opinion, because we're
I
just
agree.
wired for change, right? And I love that word there, because it's perfectly phrased, is that I need to either get to acceptance and know that there's something that I just have to be at peace for. And of course, this was used in Al-Anon and got really big in the AA community, because addiction is something that, if anybody listening to this loves somebody with addiction or struggles with addiction, you know that there's very little someone else outside of the person's body with the addiction can do for that person. And that is the hardest thing in the world, when you love somebody and you are watching them struggle and you want to save them and you can't. And that comes up a lot in mental health too, right? When I work with clients who are just terrified that a loved one is going to harm them, self-harm, or make a bad choice or a hard choice in their opinion, and that courage to either pick up the phone and have that hard talk of like, hey, I love you, I think you need to go into therapy, or like go see someone, or that acceptance of, I've had this conversation so many times, I love this person, but they're on their own path. That
Yeah.
is incredibly challenging work. But we can use that in every area of our life, right? The courage to walk out the door when we are in a toxic relationship, when we see it, when we see it, right? Because a lot of times we're in a toxic relationship and we don't see it. So when the goggles come off and you see it, it requires so much courage to walk out that door. Or the courage to change careers when you realize you're not happy and your soul is dying a little bit every day, right? Or the courage to stand up to a coworker, a hard boss, at work, or the courage to get active in your community and do something about it, right? So
Yeah.
this is great. I mean, it's really applicable in every area of your life.
I would like to add a word to courage, and I couldn't agree more. Wow, yeah, what is it when you look up courage or bravery? It's not the absence of fear. It's recognizing the
Yeah.
fear and doing it anyway. So
Yeah.
we can all step into that place of courage. The word I want to add is trust.
Mm.
Because it's getting to that place where you can trust that everything has a way of working out, or everything cycles. Like we learned that from nature.
Mm.
There's the seasons, and so even if you're on a spiritual path, well, certainly I believe it's easier, to get into that place of trust, that there's a divine plan or so forth. But even if not, you do have some history to prove that things have a way of working out, because no matter what situation you're in, I'm sure throughout your life you went through other situations and you got through it. So you could look back in your life and see any difficult challenge, and then you're here now. So obviously, somehow, some way, things brought you to this point in life. So we have that validation that as we're driving along and we can't see the next part of the road, as we get further down the road, the next part of the road shows up, and that's life. So for me, and it's been coming up a lot lately with clients, is just getting into that place of trust. So I think courage and trust, man, that's a combo wombo. Like that's some power there.
I have I know these have gone out of fashion, the little like signs in your house that say something, but I have a sign in my house.
Never go out of fashion.
No,
No.
they are big time out of fashion, but I still have a couple around the house that I really like. And one that I have is worry ends where faith begins.
Mm.
And right. And I just love that because depending on your
Yes.
belief systems, it could be a word like trust. Like I trust that this or something better for me is happening, or I trust that I will get the support when I need it. Or you lean into that faith and that higher power that even if in this lifetime people have chronically let me down, I still have that faith or trust in a higher power that it's going to work out. And that is incredibly hard to keep in life if life has continuously knocked you down, or you have been in relationships where people haven't had your back, or they haven't showed up for you or stood up for you. You lose that faith and trust along the way. So that's where working individually with someone, taking one of our classes, coming on retreat, we can us or someone else in this space can help you get back to that feeling of trusting in a, not even a higher power, but just trusting in that it will work out the way that it should, and that you are more capable than you know or you remember. And sometimes it's just working with someone who helps you remember how strong and resilient you are, or helps you remember where your power is and get your power back, or helps you remember what your intuition is. If that fire feeling inside of your belly is burning and you're not listening to it, helps you say, hey, that's important right there. That's
Yeah.
passion. Actually, that's yeah. Yeah. So that's where this is, I think that it's a journey to self-awareness and self-discovery. It's not something that you land at. So that's why we offer, so many wonderful online programs. We have our next online program starting April 2nd. The fundamentals course is something you're not going to want to miss. It's awesome. It's self-paced. It's online. You have 75-minute live classes with us weekly. And then we have the Game Changer Costa Rica retreat coming up. Now is the time to sign up. This will sell out. We have a few spots left, but this will sell out. So if it's something that you're interested in or have been thinking about doing, this is 7 days that is a game changer. It will change your life.
Yeah, I love, the courses that we offer because they're the lessons you learn are lifelong. One of our mottos is, become a certified life coach, or at least learn to think like one and live like one, because it really makes a difference when you do have the tools, be it to help yourself, a family member, or, perhaps you want to make a career of it and help others. It's really learning how to train your brain. And the difference, it's night and day. It's like you're living a different life when you learn to think differently, when you learn how to rewrite your story, when you learn how to reframe a situation, person, place, or thing. And it does help you to master, to get to that place, to get to that wisdom where you can clearly see what you can change, and where you do gain the wisdom to see the difference. So yeah, we are excited to thrive in 25. That's our motto for this year, thrive in 25. So hope to see you in one of the courses, and the Costa Rica retreat is definitely, as Gina said, a game changer. So look forward to seeing you in the next podcast next week, and hopefully one of the future courses or retreats.
And I've added to the Thrive in 25 as my clients. I'm getting mixed reviews, but it's not just survive, but thrive in 25.
Oh,
I'm hearing that a lot. Like, I'm just surviving right now. It's like, well, let's not just survive, let's thrive in 25.
Let's change that narrative.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna add that. So if you're interested in any of our courses or retreats, check out our website at www.globalholisticcoaching.com. If you have any questions at all about the retreat or the courses, or just a topic you'd like us to cover, you can email us at globalholisticcoaching@gmail.com. And please like and subscribe. It helps us grow our channel. We have some really excited things planned for this podcast. The podcast has been growing, so thank you for our support. But we're trying to get to 25,000 subscribers in 25, so it really helps us as we move into a new format too. So as always, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. And hey, G, I'm just thinking maybe purple for next week.
Oh God, don't get used to this. We're not going to be matchy. No more samesies. I like samesies. Actually, I love it. I do.